As the travelers followed Amun-Ra deeper into the palace, they were enveloped in sweet scents of incense. The grandeur of the palace continued to amaze them with each step they took. The walls were adorned with intricate paintings that depicted gods and goddesses in mythical battles, and the ceilings were so high that they seemed to touch the heavens. The columns that supported the palace were made of gleaming marble, and they were intricately carved with hieroglyphs that told stories of ancient times. As they walked, the travelers couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The energy that had been coursing through their bodies since they entered the desert seemed to have intensified, and they could feel it pulsing in the very walls of the palace. It was as if the palace held secrets they weren't meant to know. Amun-Ra led them through a maze of corridors and chambers, each one more mysterious than the last, until they finally came upon a grand hall. In the center of the hall was a large stone altar, upon which sat a golden sarcophagus. The sarcophagus was adorned with precious stones and was so finely crafted that it seemed to glow in the dim light of the torches. It was as if the sarcophagus held a secret so powerful that it radiated a mysterious aura. The travelers' hearts skipped a beat as they approached the altar. They couldn't help but wonder what was inside the sarcophagus and what significance it held. Amun-Ra stood beside the altar, watching them with an intense gaze, as if he was testing their worthiness to be there. "Behold," Amun-Ra said, motioning to the sarcophagus. "This is the tomb of the pharaoh's daughter, Princess Amira Nefertari." His voice was low and grave, as if he was speaking of a great mystery that only a select few were privileged to know. The group gasped in unison. They couldn't believe they were standing in front of the tomb of an ancient Egyptian princess. Lady Penelope felt a chill run down her spine, while the rest of the group stood in awe, their eyes fixed on the golden sarcophagus. "The pharaoh's daughter was buried with her most precious possession," Amun-Ra continued, his voice low and mysterious. "A necklace of great power that was said to grant immortality to its wearer." His voice trailed off, leaving the travelers to wonder what else he knew. The travelers exchanged looks of disbelief. Was it possible that such a necklace existed? And if it did, why had they been brought here? They all knew that they had entered a world of mystery and secrets that they could never have imagined. Amun-Ra continued, his voice echoing through the grand hall. "The necklace has been lost for centuries, but it is said..." Before he could finish his thought, suddenly they heard a soft, melodic voice behind them, and they turned to see a woman approaching. Her beauty was overwhelming, and she seemed to radiate a golden aura that glinted in the torchlight. The woman was dressed in all gold, with long, flowing hair that shimmered like sunlight on water. She moved gracefully, like a goddess, and her eyes sparkled with a mysterious intensity. As she walked, the intoxicating scent of frankincense and myrrh filled their nostrils, making them feel as if they were in a dream. "I see that you have finally arrived," she said, her voice carrying a hint of enchantment. "I am Elahemat. Welcome to the palace of the pharaohs." The travelers were amazed by her presence. Elahe was the most beautiful woman they had ever seen, and her aura of mystery and power was palpable. Amun-Ra continued. "Captain William, Lady Penelope, Dr. Goldstein, and Mr. Edward," he said, gesturing to each of them. "Elahemat has summoned you here for a reason." Just then, they all remembered the letters they had received with the initials M. Elahe smiled, and her eyes twinkled with an enigmatic light. "Yes, I have brought you here because I need your help. The necklace of Princess Amira has been stolen, and it is up to you to find it and return it to its rightful place." Elahe continued, her voice low and intense. "The necklace has been lost for centuries, but is said to have been hidden somewhere in the desert. You must find it and return it to me so that it can be reunited with its rightful owner." The travelers were stunned by this revelation. The necklace of the pharaoh's daughter was one of the most valuable treasures in all of Egypt, and it is said to be cursed. They exchanged uneasy glances, knowing that they had no experience in this kind of search. They each wondered to themselves why they came to Egypt and, more importantly, what would happen if they failed. Suddenly, as if she had read their minds, Elahe smiled and said, "I have faith in you." Her golden aura seemed to intensify, almost blinding them. Lady Penelope tried to shield her eyes from the dazzling light. "Now go and rest, and tomorrow you shall begin your search for the necklace of Princess Amira." The travelers were led to their chambers by servants, each one keeping their distance as if afraid to get too close. As they lay in their beds, their minds still reeling from the encounter with Elahe Mott, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creaking of the palace walls and the distant howling of the desert wind. Despite their unease, exhaustion eventually overtook them, and they drifted off into an uneasy sleep. In their dreams, they saw images of the ancient princess and her priceless necklace, glittering like 1,000 stars in the dark desert sky. The next morning, they were awakened by the sound of a gong echoing through the palace. Bleary-eyed, they stumbled out of bed and made their way to the grand hall, where Elahe Mott was waiting for them. "Good morning," she said with a smile, her eyes gleaming with a mysterious light. "I trust you slept well?" The travelers nodded, still feeling the weight of their strange dreams. "Good," Elahe said, "because today, the real work begins." The travelers exchanged worried glances, but they knew that they had no choice. They had come this far, and they were determined to see their mission through to the end. The travelers were led through the palace corridors, their footsteps echoing through the halls. The walls were adorned with intricate paintings, some of them depicting the Princess Amira Nefertari herself. Eventually, they arrived at a large wooden door, which the servant pushed open to reveal a spacious room. Inside, the room was filled with shelves upon shelves of ancient texts and scrolls, each one detailing the history and mythology of the desert. As they worked, they could feel the energy of the palace, heightening their senses and sharpening their focus. They knew they were on the brink of something extraordinary, something that would change their lives forever. As they pored over the texts, trying to piece together the clues that would lead them to the necklace, they found themselves lost in the intricate details of the desert's history and mythology. Some of the texts spoke of hidden passageways and secret traps, while others told stories of ancient curses and the fate of those who dared to defy them. As they worked, they began to notice strange hieroglyphs etched into the walls, each one holding a cryptic message that seemed to taunt them with its mystery. Finally, after hours of searching, they discovered a hidden compartment in one of the desks. Inside was a small fragment of parchment, the ink faded with age and the writing barely legible. "Beware the curse of the necklace." As they pondered the meaning of the message, one of the palace servants, a young woman with piercing eyes and an anxious demeanor, began to act strangely. She was constantly hovering around the travelers and listening in on their conversations. After a while, she finally approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have information that might be of use to you." The travelers exchanged skeptical glances, but the woman's earnest expression and the intensity of her gaze convinced them to hear her out. "You see," she said, her voice low and urgent, "the necklace is cursed. It must be returned to the princess before the next full moon, or the curse will fall upon you." The travelers were stunned and filled with newfound hesitation. "Why didn't Elahe mention this before?" Captain William asked, his voice stern and demanding. The servant shrugged helplessly. "I do not know, but I beg of you, please return the necklace before it is too late." The travelers exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to do. The thought of a curse hanging over their heads was enough to make even the bravest of them hesitate. The travelers were silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. They knew that the curse could not be ignored. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they made their decision. They would continue their search for the necklace. They knew the only way to avoid the curse now was to find the necklace and return it to the princess. "When is the next full moon?" Dr. Goldstein asked. "After the sun rises and sets 4 times, the servant replied. They gasped in shock. "In just 4 days," Mr. Edwards exclaimed. How are we supposed to find the necklace and return it in just 4 days? It's been lost for centuries." The servant bit her lip anxiously. "I don't know, but I can help you. I know the palace better than anyone. I can guide you to places that may hold clues." The travelers looked at each other, then nodded in agreement. They knew they needed all the help they could get, and the servant's knowledge of the palace could prove invaluable. "By the way," she said, "my name is Myra." "Nice to meet you, Myra, and thank you," Captain William said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We accept your offer. Lead the way.